For 15 years, China has been building something in complete silence. Not a weapon, not an army. The US dollar has run the entire world for 8 years. No vote, no treaty. The deal is done. Done.
Done.
In a quiet room in Shanghai, traders execute a deal that has nothing to do with China's stock market and everything to do with the slow unraveling of American power. No dollars change hands, no SWIFT transfer, no New York clearinghouse touches it. Oil for yuan, full stop. It sounds small, a rounding error in the world's largest economy. But rounding errors done enough times become new math. And the question hiding underneath this transaction is one most Americans have never been asked to think about. What happens to your savings, your mortgage, your retirement account when the dollar stops being the only game in town? Stay with me, because this isn't a story about currency charts. It's a story about power and who gets to hold it. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody puts on a magazine cover. The US dollar isn't valuable because of gold, or oil, or even the American economy. It's valuable because everyone agreed to pretend it is, and that agreement is starting to look shaky. For 80 years, the dollar has been the world's reserve currency. That means when Brazil buys oil from Saudi Arabia, they usually pay in dollars. When a central bank in Africa wants to protect its savings, it buys dollars. When countries panic, they run, not to gold, not to their own currency, to the dollar. That single fact gives America something almost nobody talks about in plain terms: the ability to print money the rest of the world has to accept. Economists have a name for it. They call it exorbitant privilege. A French finance minister coined that phrase decades ago, half in admiration, half in resentment. And China has spent the last 15 years quietly building the plumbing to take a piece of that privilege for itself. Not through war, not through some dramatic announcement, through pipes, ports, and paperwork. Let's break down how a currency becomes the world's currency, because it's simpler than Wall Street wants you to believe. 3 things need to be true. People need to trust it won't collapse, people need to be able to use it everywhere, and people need an alternative to the plumbing that currently controls global payments, which, right now, runs almost entirely through the United States. That plumbing has a name: SWIFT. It's the messaging system banks use to tell each other, send this money here. It sounds boring? It is boring. It's also one of the most powerful weapons America has ever built, because cutting a country off from SWIFT is close to cutting it off from the modern financial world. Russia found that out in 2022. China watched that happen in real time, and what Beijing took from it wasn't fear. It was a business plan. Since then, China has been building its own version of that plumbing, a system called CIPS, the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. Think of it as a parallel set of pipes, quietly installed next to the ones America controls. It's smaller, it's slower, but it works, and every year a few more countries plug into it. At the same time, China has been signing currency swap agreements, deals where 2 countries agree to trade in each other's money, skipping the dollar entirely. Dozens of these deals now exist, with countries across Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. And then there's gold. For the last several years, China's central bank has been buying gold at a pace that raised eyebrows in every major financial capital. Quietly, consistently, building a reserve that doesn't depend on anyone else's permission. None of this on its own ends the dollar. But stack it together and you get something else: an off-ramp, a door that didn't exist before. And doors, once built, tend to get used.
Here's where the story gets less comfortable.
The dollar still makes up the vast majority of global reserves and global trade. That part hasn't changed much yet. The yuan, by comparison, sits at a small single-digit share of global reserves. On paper, this looks like America has nothing to worry about. But currencies don't collapse like a bridge. They erode like a coastline, slowly, then all at once. At the edges, nobody's watching. And here's the part that should make you sit up. America's own behavior has been quietly helping China's case. Every time Washington freezes another country's dollar assets as a sanction, even when justified, it sends the same message to every other government on Earth. Your dollars are not fully yours. They're yours until we decide otherwise. That's a terrifying thing for a central banker to realize, and terrified central bankers diversify. Meanwhile, back home, the U.S. government has run deficits for years that would get any household laughed out of a bank. The national debt has crossed levels once considered the stuff of economic doomsday scenarios. And the only reason it hasn't triggered a crisis is because the rest of the world keeps buying that debt, because they still need dollars. So ask yourself the question nobody in Washington wants asked out loud. What happens to the price of that debt, to interest rates, to inflation, the day the rest of the world needs slightly fewer dollars? That's not a hypothetical anymore. That's the experiment now quietly running.
Now let's pump the brakes, because the internet loves a collapse story, and most of them are wrong. The yuan is not about to replace the dollar next year. It's not going to happen next decade either, and here's why. China doesn't actually want a fully open currency. A truly global reserve currency has to move freely across borders, and Beijing has never been willing to give up that level of control. You can't run a command economy and a fully convertible global currency at the same time. Those two goals fight each other. So this isn't China building a rival throne, it's China building a second door out of a room it doesn't want to be trapped in. That's a very different and much more realistic threat. Not the dollar collapses tomorrow, but the dollar's monopoly quietly cracks, decade by decade, until the privilege America has taken for granted since World War II is worth noticeably less. And a privilege worth less means a government that has to actually behave like other governments, borrow at real rates, justify its spending, and live within something closer to its means. That's the plotline nobody's making a viral thumbnail out of, but it's the one that actually matters. Zoom out far enough, and this stops being a story about China at all. It becomes a story about what happens when the rest of the world simply stops being afraid to say no. For 80 years, saying no to the dollar wasn't really an option. Now it is, even if it's a slow, expensive, imperfect option. And once an option exists, behavior changes, even if the option is barely ever used. Every basis point of extra caution from foreign central banks, every new swap line signed, every gold bar quietly added to a vault in Beijing, none of it is dramatic on its own. All of it together is the financial equivalent of tectonic plates shifting, imperceptible day to day, undeniable over decades. And the people who will feel it first won't be traders in Shanghai or bureaucrats in Washington. It'll be an American family refinancing a mortgage at a rate that no longer assumes the whole world is desperate for dollars. It'll show up in a grocery bill, a 401k statement, a rate on a car loan, quietly, without anyone ever announcing that the game had changed. So here's where I'll leave you, because I don't think this story has a clean ending. Not yet. For 80 years, the world ran on an assumption that the dollar was simply too essential to question. China isn't trying to prove that assumption wrong overnight. It's just quietly, patiently making sure it no longer has to bet its entire economy on that assumption being true forever. The real question isn't whether the dollar gets replaced,
It's whether America can keep behaving like the only option in the room once the room finally has more than one door. If you want to understand exactly how deep that kind of quiet, patient power can run, watch the video on your screen right now. It's about the biggest monopoly in history and how it built control so total most people never even noticed it happened.